More than a decade ago, I started reading these articles by Mark Seaman, specifically about monads, and more specifically about the maybe monad. And I thought, C sharp doesn't have monads in them. They have a way to handle monads, but they don't actually have a maybe monad and no real handling for monads, including bind and such. So I thought, I'm going to create a monad in C sharp. So in order to do this, all I had to do was open up Visual Studio. After Visual Studio is open, all I had to do was go to the Maybe CS class and begin to implement the Maybe monad. So in order to have a Maybe monad, you need to have the ability to have it have a way to track that it either has a value or it has no value. Now, whether or not it has a value is going to be dependent on whether or not this is true or false. But a maybe monad needs to have some sort of an internal value to it that will be a specific type. So we're going to make this a generic class. And all I have to do is add the type to the maybe class. Now, the value should not be accessible externally from the maybe class. We're going to make it only to be bindable. So we're actually going to make this a private field. Now, in order to instantiate this class, all I have to do is create a public static function that will call a private constructor in order to initiate a maybe of type T. Of course, sometimes you'll have a maybe value that will have none, which means that it doesn't have a value. So in that case, I'm going to create a none static method. Now, in order to make this work, I'm going to make sure I set has value. So since this is private, I'm going to allow myself to be able to set has value. Now, all I need to do in order to complete the maybe monad is have the ability to bind in order to use the value. So in order to do that, I need to create a method that will allow me to bind, and if has value is true, then it will allow you to pass in a delegate function where the function will be evaluated if has value is true. Now, in order to test this, I'm going to use the program.cs file in order to test some logic. And to begin, I will create a class that has a function that uses the monad and returns a monad. Now, in order to finish the monad, the only thing I need to do is click debug in order to debug this. Oh, yeah. As you can see, we said hello world to make sure that we got into the console, and then we also got the value because we were able to call test monad. Test monad successfully returned something, and in the bind, we used that value to console.writeLine. Now let's test this with none. And as you can see, we have the hello world and the value, but since we tried to bind to test bad monad, nothing happened. And that's all you have to do in order to do a monad. I want to give a shout out to Nile Red because I love Nile Red's videos. They're the best at chemistry experimentation, I guess is the best way that I'd put it. And so that's what this format was really about. Every single thing you want to do is all you need to do is this one thing over and over again. Now, there's a lot more to a maybe monad than this, but these are the basic essentials that you should be able to bind and do something. There's also a lot more functionality. I suggest you go and read every one of these from Mark Seaman in his blog.plo.dk and learn about what monads are, and possibly even download our Gin Studios .utilities.monad, and maybe even use it for testing and use it for ASP.NET, but definitely the utilities.monad, and watch our other monad videos. And this was a really fun video to watch, and I hope some of you get a kick out of this, and I'll see you guys next time.